Hello everyone, today I want to make a video about a specific album that I collect. That is Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Now this is one of the very first albums that coined that phrase, doom metal. It's a very specific type of metal. I mean, regarding metal, there's all kinds of new genres coming up. I'm going to say every single year that passes you have new genres, which is wonderful. It's actually a genre, the metal genre in general is very popular worldwide. It's performed in many different languages across the globe. I mean, in China, in Japan, in Russia, in Europe, South America, absolutely, Brazil, Chile, absolutely very popular genre, metal genre. Now, I didn't always like the metal genre. It was back when I was in middle school that I sort of I visited this genre thanks to my bus driver, my school bus driver. He would play wonderful albums on the radio, and many of the students, they hated it. They would scream out, change it, put rap, put hip hop. It sounds like they're torturing a cat. That would be the electric guitars, the wah wah bar. It's a wonderful sound. I mean, at least to me. When I first heard the metal genre, I just fell in love with it. I really wanted to visit it, and I'm not done yet. I'm still visiting this genre. This, like I told you, there's always new variations coming out. Now, the reason I want to make this video is on this album specifically because I consider it a very special album. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's the best doom metal album ever, but it sort of paved the way for future bands. Absolutely, I believe that this album, it did something. It started something, and it's something that is still continuing. That would be the doom metal genre. That it's a genre that has a lot of emotion. It talks about death, absolutely. It talks about loss. It talks about so many things, sorcery, witchcraft. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I mean, beyond watching a film and getting lost in a film, I happen to get lost in music. I mean, hearing music talking about dragons, about fantasy, stuff like that. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to escape the norm. For example, after I get out of work, you better believe that I listen to metal because I really want to just forget about work. I want to have fun, so I listen to the metal genre. All right, let me really focus on this. Now, I am going to deviate quite a bit. I'm going to rant. Technically, my videos they're basically rants. I'll admit that. But this rant is going to be based on the audio cassette format, which is a format that's very iconic, very popular. Even to this day, I still use it. I still collect it. I know it is flawed, but it's very special to me. All right. Now, I was actually thinking about not making this video today because I wasn't really feeling it. But I told myself, do it. Just do it. I owe this album, this video. I really want to hype this album. You can still find this album via digital streaming services like Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, stuff like that. But if you happen to have the option to buy this album in a physical format, I recommend that you do. Especially, for example, if you collect metal genre albums in general, this is one album to have. It's a very special album. Like I told you, it's not the best doom metal album ever made, but it started something. All right. Now this video is not going to be short. Like I said before, my videos are nice and long. I really try to do my best. Okay, Candlemass. That's the band, Candlemass. It's not a very it's a very special name. I mean, it has the phrase candle. Yes, candles. Candles have very like a sort of spirit to them. Candles, they're used both in witchcraft, but they're also used in religious situations. It's a very flexible sort of like medium, the candle medium. It's a beautiful medium. I mean, back in the days when there was no electricity, candles were the way that you would illuminate your homes. Technically, in the here and now, considering the LED technology, they talk about the lumen. How many lumens does this LED output? Now, technically, one candle will output approximately 1 lumen. So it's wonderful to know. The candles. Yes, this band was in fact called Candlemass. Very iconic band considering the metal genre. So yes, right away you can tell this the album cover. It's quite gruesome, you might say. It's not very like a very PG rated album cover. I mean, that is in fact a skull with wooden stakes going through it. Yeah, it's not something very nice to look at. But this band, they did something different. They went against the norm. They really wanted to kind of start something, and they did a wonderful job. I mean, just the album cover itself, it's very different. This really stands out from other covers. It's a very gruesome looking cover. They decided to use this font, this sort of like an old English font. It's very beautiful. Now this is the band, the album name, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Now notice that on Doomicus, it does in fact have the word doom in it. Like I told you, this is one of the very first bands that coined this phrase. Doom metal. Like this is absolutely, I consider this to be a doom metal album, absolutely. But there were others. There were even some that were made before this album. But like I told you, this is one of the first ones that coined that phrase. Doom metal. Okay, now this is in fact stereo. Yes, the audio cassette format in general, it is in fact a stereo-based format. This has a wonderful sort of like a number that might help you find this album. It's LC 19882/4. Now, if you happen to find such an album in this format, that will be the audio cassette format. It's not going to be cheap. Now, these are quite expensive because they have in fact become collectible amongst the collectors who happen to collect metal music albums, which I am one of them. For example, I have many collections like this. I just want to start with this one because like I told you, it's one of the albums to own if you happen to love the doom metal genre. Absolutely. All right, so this is the front. Now this is the back. Now this has a very iconic look to the case itself. It's a very old type case. For example, the newer ones, this part was clear, translucent. But the original ones, they were like this. They were a solid color. They were either black or white or different colors, but they were solid. They opted for this because it was actually this album was released back in 1986. So back in 1986, this was still the norm. When you bought pre-recorded albums, they pretty much looked like this, where the front was clear, but the back material was a solid color. Very nice. Now this is the top. It says Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Okay, right here it says Black Dragon. Leviathan Records. And it has a number SC326 right here. That might help you find this album. It's not a very common album, at least not in this presentation. That will be the compact cassette presentation. Now this says right here again, stereo LC 19882/4. Very nice. Now this is in fact used. As you can tell right here, the plastic is a little bit scratched. But I still love owning this because this is the original case for it. For example, I could go ahead and replace this case for a newer one. But I really want to keep the original one. When you keep something like this, and even if it's scratched, if it's broken, I think it's more special when it has its original case. All right. Let me show you the case itself. It's a very common case, like I told you. Not too special, just solid plastic. Some of these, they had like sort of lines right here. This one does not. See, just solid. It does have a very fine texture to it. See, let me kind of show you that. I'm moving it on purpose, a very fine texture to it. Very nice. This is the original cover for this album. Let me show you the cassette itself. Now they opted for a white colored cassette. Which is fine. I mean, notice it's not a screw type. Most of the time when you have a screw type cassette, it'll be a higher quality cassette for sure. But considering that this is a pre-recorded album, this was pretty much the norm. It was normal to have cassettes that were pretty much glued together. Now this one does work. It works perfectly fine. But for example, if it had failed, for example, if this felt came off for any reason, it's very difficult to repair when you don't have screws. When you have screws on these, you can just remove the screws and you can get in here very easily. In this particular case, if I would happen to have to repair this cassette, it will be more involved because I pretty much have to crack open this guy and then glue it again. But fortunately, it works great. Now on this presentation, they opted for that would be like a baby blue colored leader. Now I have a few versions of this album. There was more than one version sold because some of them were only sold in America. Some of them were sold in different countries in Europe. I own those. I'm going to show you those in a little while. So yes, a baby blue colored leader. And this is the actual ribbon itself. Now this is in fact type 1. That would be ferric oxide. Ferric oxide based. See right there? I'm shining my recessed lights on it. Now some of these, they had more like a brownish color. This is sort of more towards the dark brown color. Yes, wonderful album. I love owning this album. Okay, right away it says that has the Dolby symbol because it was in fact recorded with Dolby noise reduction. That will be Dolby B, which really helps. Especially this type of music. This type of music has a lot of distortion to it due to the fact that there are in fact electric guitars used. When you record electric guitars, many of the cassette systems, they will consider those electric guitars to be in fact noise. This really helped. The fact that this was recorded with Dolby noise reduction. This means that you can crank up the volume and you'll hear less hiss. I'm saying less. I'm not going to tell you, oh, just because it has Dolby B, it means you're not going to hear any hiss at all. No, you're still going to hear hiss. But it will be a much less hiss when you crank the volume up. Now, not all albums were recorded with Dolby B. This one was. I mean, thank goodness, because this really helped. This means that you can really crank up the volume and you won't be annoyed by the amount of tape hiss. Okay, so it says Black Dragon / Leviathan. There was sort of like a partnership between these two companies. Now, I own other versions of this album and they don't say the same thing because it wasn't this same company that distributed this album. It was another one based in Europe. Okay, so right away, Solitude. That's a 5-minute and 34-second song. Solitude. Oh man, now Solitude, it's so unique. I mean, no other song before this song was released talked about such a concept about dying, but not just about dying, about wanting to die alone. I mean, that's powerful. I mean, you're not going to hear a hip hop song or a rap song that's going to talk about such a concept. The metal genre, it does touch this concept quite often. Yes, death. So that's pretty much what Solitude. I mean, I'm not going to play this album in this video. You can hear this album. Like it's even available via YouTube. It's a wonderful album, at least in my opinion. So yes, I love the fact that they started with this song, Solitude. It really sets the stage for this album. It lets you know what this album is going to be about. It's going to be dark. It's going to be heavy. Yes, absolutely. The guitar riffs in this album, they're really heavy. A lot of distortions. It's a beautiful sound. So it started off with Solitude and it continues with Demon's Gate. Oh man, I'm getting shivers just saying that name, Demon's Gate. It's a very powerful name for a song in its own, Demon's Gate. Now in that song, it talks about going through a demon's gate. Now, imagine the feeling of walking through a demon's gate. I mean, that's a very powerful thing to sing about. And that's what this song talks about. It talks about the gates to hell. I mean, that's something incredibly powerful. Demon's Gate, wonderful song. I happen to love every single song on this album. That's why I collect it. Okay, Demon's Gate, wonderful song. Now it continues with Crystal Ball. Now Crystal Ball talks about, that would be wizardry, wizards. The wizards that use crystal balls to read the future. It's a wonderful, like I told you, this is a wonderful way to escape the norm. Forget about your everyday frustrations and stresses. To hear music that talks about a crystal ball, yeah, it's very fun to me. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful concept. This album, it captures so many different things. Like I told you, death. Like I told you, the gates of hell, Demon's Gate, wizardry, crystal ball. I mean, so far, this is quite an album, right? If you haven't listened to this album, I really recommend it. For example, even if you don't like doom metal in general, maybe if you like other genres like black metal, death metal, gore metal. I mean, there's so many different types of metal. Like I told you, this album, it started something. And that has to mean something, at least to me. Now, this is the main reason why I'm making this video. I really want to pay my respects to this album. Okay, so right here it says Candlemass, the band name, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. This happens to say LC 19882/4 SC326. Okay, now this band, they changed their lineup more than once. Now, since this happens to be the very first album that they released, it has the original lineup. Now, the original lineup, it had a specific sound to that lineup. For example, when they changed that lineup, the sound changed. Now, you might have your own opinion regarding that newer sound. But at least to me, at least on my opinion, I love this original lineup. The vocals, especially the vocals, oh man, they're pretty much opera vocals. When you mix such a thing as opera vocals with those electric guitars, it's something so powerful. I mean, those two genres are opera music is very emotional itself. I'll admit that. I mean, I don't like opera, but since this has opera vocals with those wonderful electric guitars, I love this sound. That those opera vocals that are in this album, they're amazing. It's difficult. The amount that would be vocal range, the vocal range that the lead singer in this band has, it's amazing. Now, this is another song that's not on side A, it's in side B. And that other song, the lead singer, his voice changes somewhere halfway through the song. He reaches that level that one reaches when one is crying. I mean, that tells you a lot. If you're gonna sing and you're gonna sing in that sort of like a crying voice, that means you're giving it everything you can. You're giving it 100% when you reach that level. That voice that you have when you're crying, it's in one of these songs. It's a very emotional song, very powerful. Okay, so this happens to be side 2. Yes, all cassettes have 2 sides, side 1, side 2. Now, depending on what machine you have, you either have to flip this around physically, or it'll probably be a auto reverse deck where you just put one side, and then after it plays it back completely, it'll reverse the motors and it'll go the other side. Wonderful concept, the compact cassette. So this is side B. Now this starts off with Blackstone Wielder. Wonderful song as well. This talks about sort of like a blacksmith, if you will. I mean, it's a concept that, it does exist in the here now, but not much. For example, the companies that make custom motorcycles, sometimes they need a blacksmith because they want metal parts that are made by hand, by heating them up, by hitting them with an anvil. It's a concept that it was very common back in the days. For example, there was a time when there was no guns, there were swords. Back when people still use swords, the concept of having a blacksmith was very common. In the here and now, not so much. It's mostly done for cosmetic purposes. That would be blacksmiths. Okay, and it continues with Under the Oak. Yes, Under the Oak. It's a very emotional song. It talks about being reborn. Which is pretty much it's not it doesn't literally mean being reborn. It's sort of like a figure of speech, if you will. It's when you reach a moment in your life and you realize you have to make a change. It's a very powerful concept, and they sing about it in this song, Under the Oak. It talks about waking up under an oak tree and all of a sudden realizing that you're reborn. You're not the same person that you were when you fell asleep. Beautiful music. And it ends with a sorcerer's pledge. Yes, it says sorcerer on the name itself. It's wonderful. Like I seriously doubt that other genres of music talk about such subjects like sorcery, like death, like being reborn. Blacksmiths? No way. The metal genre, it absolutely does. It's a very, not everybody likes this kind of music. I happen to love it quite a bit. Wonderful. So that's the cassette itself. They opted for a white colored case. Now this is the slip case itself. I really want to show this in a lot of detail. For example, I don't know if anyone has ever done such a thing. Shown this album in more than one variation in the compact cassette. I'm going to do that in this video. I think it deserves to be shown very proudly. I'm very proud to own this album. I do own it on compact, on CD, the compact disc format, but I'm not even going to show it. I just want to show the cassettes because it's difficult. It's difficult to have a good working cassette. I have quite a few. I just recently made a video where I show my favorites. I even showed my Nakamichi Dragon deck. I can show it right now. It's in my living room. But for now, I want to show this album in a lot of detail. All right, so this is the insert. This is the top. This is the, it even has a scanning code. Something wonderful to see. It says side 1 with its three tracks, side 2 with its other 3 tracks. Notice there's not that many tracks, which means that the songs themselves, they're quite long. They're pretty long. Notice right here, it says, for example, 9 minutes and 10 seconds. At least to me, that's wonderful. I love it when songs are nice and long. You can tell a story much better when you have a longer song, because this is pretty much mini stories that are being told to you. Stories that are being told via music, via vocals, very powerful vocals. Like I told you, this in fact has opera level vocals. All right. And inside it says Candlemass. The bass guitar, there's so many different bass guitars. Some of them are 4-string, 5-string, 6 strings. They all produce different wonderful sounds. The bass guitarist in this specific lineup, like I told you, the lineup did in fact change on this band, Candlemass. When this album was released, it was Leif Edling. The rhythm guitar, I love knowing that there was more than one guitar. For example, you can in fact have a single guitar in a band, but when you have two, it's a wonderful sound. I'm gonna say it's candy for my ears when you have more than one guitar in a band. Now the rhythmic guitar was played by Mats Björkman. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly. I'm doing my best here. I really want to hype this album. It's a very old album. Like I told you, this was released back in 1986, but it was a very special album, at least to me. Now the drum work was made by Mats Ekstrom. Notice that there's not many people involved in this album. For example, there are some bands in the here and now that they have like 10 members or even more, which is also something wonderful. I mean, to have 10 members in a band, that means that every single band member has something to do. It's a wonderful concept. For example, I've seen some bands where they have more than one drummer. That's amazing. When you have more than one drummer, you can create a different sound, a sound that sounds almost inhuman. Because yes, it is inhuman because there's more than one person playing drums. It's a wonderful sound. But regarding this lineup, it was not that large. It wasn't many people involved. Okay, it says recorded in Thunderlode Studios. That was the studio where this was actually recorded in, the original recording before it was edited. It says engineered and co-produced by Reagan Valhalla Warrior. That was sort of like a nickname that they gave him. This is a wonderful thing to see on an insert. Längqvist. Produced by Candlemass. Yes, absolutely, Candlemass, the band itself. Cover concept and artwork by Candlemass. Special thanks to Johan Längqvist, in charge of the vocals. Claes Bergwall, solo guitar. Christian Wibeard, Seal Swenson, voice on A Sorcerer's Pledge. All songs, lyrics, and arrangements by Leif Edling. Marketed by Leviathan. LC 1988/4. Also available on album LA and compact disc. And this is the number for the compact disc. I do have that. I'm not even going to show it. I just want to show the compact cassettes. Look at this wonderful, wonderful drawing here regarding Black Dragon Records. It was a very iconic record back in the days. Black Dragon. And right here it says copyright Roman numerals 1986 Black Dragon Records. Unauthorized duplication is a violation of applicable laws. All rights reserved. Yes, it's wonderful to own this album in a digital format, but there's nothing like owning it on a physical format like this, the compact cassettes. It says right here, Candlemass would like to bless Michael and Agnes, Friden, Lena Graf, Nigel Glocker, Af Magnuson, Ik Ekstrom, Peter Svensson, Heavy Sound, Made From, Dave Reynolds, John Sternatsky, Ray Dorsey, Don F.K., our parents. Yes, why would you not want to thank your parents? A big hello to Susie and Tina, Georgian and Stefan, Derevita H., Leonard S., Johan Jorn Sundhed, Barbara Jorkman, Steve L., Youth H., Branting, Dane and Goran, Holtman, Kenneth Dam, Tengen Ritten, OAK Jane, Jel S., Ol, Farson, Jane Wensberg, Morgan, Dick, Albach, Epel, Jan Elklund, Cranen. See, this is obviously something you won't receive and if you buy this album via a digital file. I mean, to have these wonderful notes made by the band itself, like for instance, I know that the compact disc format still exists. It's still being manufactured, not as much as they used to. But I seriously doubt that the modern day bands do such a thing. thank so many people regarding an album. Candlemass, they did that. I mean, they didn't have to. They didn't necessarily have to place all of these thank you notes to all of these people that were involved in this album, but they did, and that's very special. It's something that's very appreciated. Okay, it's wonderful to see this right here. It says Candlemass Cult Disciples. It says disciples because that's pretty much what they call their fans. It's wonderful. I mean, it really creates sort of like a sort of connection between the consumers like me and the band itself, to know that I'm part of their disciples. It's like something like it's like written in black and white. It's like something wonderful to think about. It says Candlemass Cult Disciples, and that's located in Harpvägen 17 BV 14200, Trangston, Sweden. So yeah, Sweden. Now, I happen to love many bands that are based in Sweden. For example, Opeth. Opeth. Oh man. Now, I do own Opeth albums in the compact cassette format as well. I might show those in a future video, but like I told you, I really want to start with this album. It's a very iconic, very special album. It started something. Okay, it says Leviathan Records, the newest force in metal. notice it says newest. Now, obviously, it's not newest anymore. Like I told you, this was back in 1986. It's wonderful to see that they chose the name Force. Yes, the metal genre. It is in fact a forceful genre. It's very powerful. Absolutely. For example, now I do get mad. It's human to get mad, to get pissed off. I know that it's human. Now, when I get pissed off, I absolutely listen to metal music. It's a way to kind of blow off some steam. This is showing sort of like other albums from other bands, which were obviously involved with the same record label. That would be Leviathan. It's showing albums by Chastain. Yes, Chastain. It was another band, very iconic as well. It says, if you can't find these albums at your local store, send $8.50 per album or cassette, and or $13.50 for each CD. Please send money orders or checks. Please do not send cash. To Leviathan Records, P.O. Box 399227, Cincinnati, Ohio. No orders outside the USA. Now, obviously, this is a concept that is no longer around. I mean, it's no longer possible to just send in a money order and receive either a compact cassette or a CD. You pretty much have to buy these. Actually, there's not that many physical brick and mortar stores that sell physical media anymore. For example, back in the days, you had, for example, Tower Records. Tower Records was huge. I remember Tower Records. They're pretty much disappearing in the here now. Yes, something very wonderful to own. That would be one variation of this album, but I do have others. Let me show you another one. Okay, now this is another one. Now this happens to be a sealed copy of this exact same album. Now, why the need to own a sealed one? Well, the thing is, I consider myself a collector. And due to the fact that I consider myself a collector, I absolutely love the fact of having one sealed copy of a certain piece of media and one open copy. What that means is that I can keep this one nice and sealed, keep it safe, and use this guy. For example, I do use that one once in a while in my compact cassette player. Now, I do own quite a few portable cassette players, but these are the ones that I use the most often. These are from the Sony brand. Now, these were made back in the late 90s. Now, I know there were better models made that give you better performance, but these work wonderfully. Even they still work, which is wonderful to know. For example, they have their original belts. They made these very well. They're very efficient. The battery lasts a whole lot of, especially the batteries that I happen to use. For example, I no longer use alkaline batteries. What I use is lithium batteries. These are wonderful. They've been available for many years. Notice it says right there 1.5 volts, but it says rechargeable lithium ion. For example, there are other rechargeable lithium ion batteries that give you 3.7 volts, between 3.7 and 4.2, but obviously they're not compatible with these old machines. The wonderful thing about this concept is that these will give you the true 1.5 volts, which these machines were basically designed for. I love the fact that I pretty much charge these via any old USB connection. So you pretty much just do this, place these in here, like so. And then regarding USB connections, they're everywhere. I mean, some modern day wall plugs, they even have USB connections. For example, any notebook, any computer, any television. Televisions do in fact have USB connections behind them. You can just go up to any television, modern day television, flat screen television, and plug in this guy and it'll charge your batteries. Very handy, very easy. Very, very portable. This is just incredibly light plastic. You can pretty much just carry this in your pocket. All right, wonderful. I don't want to get too much into details about my portable players in this video. Okay, now notice right here, it says $7.98. Now, obviously, I didn't pay $7.98 for this album. I paid a lot more for it. Now, I bought that one from eBay quite a while ago. I don't remember how much I paid for that guy. I think I paid about $38 somewhere in there. It's worth every penny, even at $38. Now, this one cost me quite a bit more. Now, I bought this one via not eBay. It was that other service that mostly sells record albums as well. I don't remember the name. I actually don't use it that much. That would be the I forget the name. I'll remember it in a while. So I bought this via another online service, which allows you to both buy and sell physical media, not just compact cassette CDs as well as records. So yeah, so that I own this a sealed copy along with a pre-owned copy. But I do own more. Now I also own this one. Now this one was technically not released in the United States. This one was released in Europe. Notice it has a different look to it. Yes, different. Now this one is also stereo. And it says Dolby system. Yes, these were both recording with Dolby B noise reduction, which is wonderful to know. But notice right here, it says Orion, because Orion was another different company based in Europe that distributed this album. Not the Leviathan / Black Dragon like this one. This one was based on Orion. And right here it says in gold letters, Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. This is pretty much this right here. It's a little bit different, which is wonderful, especially to me as a collector. I love it when a certain media piece has different designs. Something wonderful. Okay, so this is pretty much the original case for it. Notice it is scratched. It's slightly yellowed. You can kind of tell right here. See if I overlap it with this guy. You probably notice that this one seems slightly more yellowed than that top one. Not much. Like I tell you, this one does have those lines, texture, unlike this other one. I just love knowing that it's the original one. For example, there are ways to kind of bring back that original shine to these. Now regarding that, if you plan to polish your crystal cases like these, try not to use a product that contains silicone. Because if you do, if for any reason there's a slight crack in this, it's gonna exaggerate it. I mean, don't tell me exactly how, scientifically wise, but it does that. For some reason, any polishing compound that happens to have silicone in it, it will make your cracks more visible. It'll exaggerate them. So try not to use a polishing product that contains silicone if you plan to remove these scratches. All right, put that aside. Wonderful sight. Okay, this is the slip cover for that other variation. Notice it's a little bit scratched right there. Yes, because this is in fact used. This is not brand new. Now this one is actually more difficult to find based on that one. This one's it's still difficult to find, but it's more, that one is more common than this one. Absolutely. All right, this is the top. It says Candlemass in those gold colors, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. But this happens to have a number, which might help you find this album. If you want to find it, it says OR/083. That might help you. Notice that this material used is a lot thinner than the one used in this is more sort of like a cardstock material, but this is more like a paper material. This one has a little bit more of a premium feel to it than this. Absolutely. Especially that sheen. See, I'm going to move it on purpose. Notice that sheen on the left one, but notice that on the right one, it has a very matte, not much sheen on it compared to this one. Much nicer presentation on this one, but I still love owning this guy. Okay, now this is the back. It says side A, same songs. Solitude, Demon's Gate, Crystal Ball. Side B, Blackstone Wielder, Under the Oak, A Sorcerer's Pledge. Very nice. Now there is quite a there is a difference regarding these tracks. Okay. Now right here, 534, 521. Yes, they're all the same. 734, 652, 820. Yes. For example, these had not been edited, made any shorter or cut, because that would have been awful. For example, on the 8-track format, it was limited to certain runtimes. So sometimes some songs that would be cut, they would lose a few seconds to them. For example, these guys. This is from the 8-track format. This is Led Zeppelin. Wonderful band. This happens to be the orange colored variation of this album, and this is the black. There were more variations, but I just happen to love to own these two. This happens to be the album that has a very iconic track. A very beautiful song, in my opinion. That would be right here, Stairway to Heaven. See? Stairway to Heaven. Now on this variation, this presentation, that song, Stairway to Heaven, it is in fact cut. It had to be made short because it didn't fit. But fortunately, on these compact cassette presentations of this Candlemass album, they were not cut. They were not made shorter because there was no need to. Actually, the compact cassette format in general, it had quite a long runtime compared to the 8-track. The 8-track, it never really had such a long runtime compared to these guys. It was one of the many advantages of the compact cassette format compared to the 8-track. But I still collect both. I love collecting both formats. Okay, so let's look at the inside. Yeah, not that nice, right? I mean, compared to this guy. This has a more of a premium look to it compared to this. This is just a simple piece of paper. Okay, right here it says Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. It has the tracks for side A, also side B. It has the band members. That would be the bass guitar, the guitarist. That would be the rhythmic guitar, the drums. Notice right here, it says Special Things 2. It only has 2 names. Now this guy doesn't just have two names. I didn't even finish reading. Let me show you this right here. So it even has more people that they're thanking. This is like more special to me, to have so many people being thanked compared to just two, like this one right here. Notice it here, it says copyright 1986 and it has an R, restricted. Okay, it says, yeah, I can't read this because this is in another language. Like I tell you, this was released only in Europe. Maybe you can read this. I can't. It's in another language, a European language. I'm not sure, but this might be Polish. I'm not sure. All right, wonderful. So far that's two presentations of this wonderful album. Now, regarding the cassette itself, I mean, maybe you don't know this yourself. For example, this is quite difficult to find, even just via images. For example, if you Google Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus Orion, you're not going to find many results. There weren't many of these made compared to this guy. Believe it or not, the cassette itself, there's like nothing on it. It's just clear. So if you didn't know this, I guess now you know. Now, I love the fact that they use a screw type cassette. Notice these black colored screws. That means if for any reason this guy needs maintenance in the future, it's very easy to do. All you do is you remove these 5 screws and you're in here. I love knowing that it has an insert. I mean, let me show you this. It's kind of hard to see right there. You see that 45-degree line? That means that towards the bottom, it looks a little bit more opaque. That's the actual insert. And over here, it looks more clear. That's the part that does not have that insert. Towards the late 90s, the cassettes in general, they started losing that insert. But the thing is, that insert, it's there for a reason. It is in fact necessary. I mean, at least in my opinion. Now on this presentation, they opted that would be for a pink colored. It's like a hot colored pink. It's more towards sort of like the red spectrum. And that's the actual media itself. Let me kind of shine my recess lights on it. It looks a little bit different compared to the American released one. Not just due to its different colored leader, but the media itself. See, on top we have that European released one. Notice it's very thin. I don't know if you notice. Next to my recess light shining through, you can see slightly red color. Let me kind of zoom in more. Let me really zoom in more. Oh, yes, yes. This really helps. Okay, not much. Okay, right there. Okay, so that's the top one. See right there. See that red color that's shining through? It's a very thin ribbon used in this guy. And this one, they use thicker ribbon. See, I'm shining my light through. Darker colored, more towards the brown. Very thin tape used in this guy. Thicker tape. So considering that, now I have listened to these two. And I've compared the audio performance on them. And it's different, absolutely. They don't sound the same. I mean, at least on my experience, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert, I'm going to say that this guy sounds better than this one. This one has more volume. I don't know exactly how much. I'm going to say it's about 10%. This recording has about 10% more volume compared to this one. And I kind of suspect why. Like I told you, this has a ribbon that was used that's more towards the dark spectrum. Now, I've noticed that when the certain types of ribbons have more of a darker color, they're generally of higher quality. I'm saying generally, not always. Like I told you, this one has a darker colored ribbon. It does have more volume than this guy. And like I told you, this one, the ribbon that was used is very thin. It's almost translucent. So that probably affects the performance. You can't record as much audio volume on this guy. For example, if you plan to own this variation, and you expect it to sound better than this one, it's not gonna happen. I mean, I don't know if anyone's done such a video. Compare the audio performance of different variations of this compact cassette presentation. Yes, this absolutely sounds better than this one due to its audio volume. Absolutely. This one sounds a lot better. But that's just my opinion. Perhaps you own these two, and perhaps you think that this one sounds better. All right. Now this is yet another variation of this exact same album. Now I didn't buy this one via eBay. I bought it via this same source. Discogs. I just remembered Discogs. Yes, I bought these two via Discogs. No, actually, no. It's been a while. I bought these a couple of years ago, so I'm remembering now. Okay, believe it or not, this presentation is banned on Discogs. You can't sell any albums released by this company because there was sort of like a contradiction. This company, it didn't have the rights to distribute this album. They pretty much distributed this album without the rights to. So it's pretty much stealing. For example, Candlemass, the band, they never received any money from these because the distributor, this company, they never had the right to do such a thing. They just decided to sell this album without the rights to it. So this is technically a banned album on Discogs. You won't find this one on Discogs. If you, for example, if you post such an album on Discogs, it'll only last about a day. After a day, the company itself, Discogs.com, will cancel your posting. All right. It's another reason why I love owning this one, knowing that it's kind of like it's an unofficial release. It's not a licensed release, if you will. Okay, so obviously it looks different compared to these others. Actually, this distributor, it distributed quite a few albums. Like I told you, you can't sell them on Discogs, but you can sell them on eBay for sure. I bought this guy on eBay. It does say Dolby System, thankfully, stereo. Notice it says 1992. Okay, now technically this album was released in 1986. But this presentation wasn't made until 1992. Okay, let me take it out of its case so you can see it a lot better. Now this is the original case for it. Now this one was also released in Europe. I know this one is for sure a Polish release from Poland. This absolutely is a release that was sold and distributed back in 1992 in Poland. Right here it says Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. And right here it sort of has like it's basically the CD cover. So it's pretty much an image of a CD slip. Right here. Yes, this was in fact available by a compact disc. Back in 1986, the compact disc was already being sold. And right here it says Candlemass. Very nice. Now this is the top. Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Now this has a number which might help you find this album. This specific presentation. Okay, now this happens to say MG. Okay, MG 2329. Very nice. That might in fact help you find this album. Okay, now this is the back. It says side A, side B. Notice on this one it says side A, side B. On this original presentation, it says side 1/side 2. Nice little variation. Now regarding the material use itself, it's pretty much like a paper material compared to this cardstock. Yes, this is more of like a premium feel to it. Very shiny, very nice. This one, not so much. I still like this presentation a lot better, but I just love owning these three. It's something, I mean, like I told you, I consider myself a collector. Okay, now this is the inside. Yeah, not that nice. This is sort of like a baby blue color. This says K2MG2329. This might help you find this album. Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. This is the logo of the actual distributor. Side A with its 3 tracks. Side B with its 3 tracks. All songs written by Leif Edling. Yes. Notice right here it says 86. Yes, this album was released in 86, but this presentation was sold in 1992. Okay. All rights of the record producer and of the owner of the record work reserved. Zykes BM. That must be in another language. It's probably Polish. Like I told you, this was in fact sold in Poland. Now this is the actual cassette itself. Yeah, this is definitely released in the 90s. Like I told you, in the 90s, this look was very popular. That will be the clear cassette compared to these other ones that were released in the 80s. That's solid plastic. Back in the 90s, this was the norm, the new norm. Clear cassettes. Back in the 80s, solid plastic. All right, this is wonderful to show via a video. This happens to have the logo of the distributor, but it's not just here. It's like right here, and so like this orange colors many times. Okay, so it says the 3 tracks on side B, Candlemass Epicus Doomicus Metallicus. Now this is in fact a screwed cassette as well, which I really love knowing. For example, now this one does work. Actually, the mechanism in this guy, I consider it to be much better than this one. It's a much smoother type mechanism. It's a much sturdier. For example, it is in fact a screw type cassette. When you have a screw type cassette, you have a much sturdier cassette. It doesn't flex as much compared to this guy. This guy flexes a lot more. Very nice. So that's side B, and this is side A. Very nice. Now let me show you. Now on this presentation, they opted for that would be a clear leader, like a white color leader. Yes. Like an opaque white colored leader, like a frosted look to it. And that's the media itself. I'm going to kind of move it on purpose, kind of catch my recess lights on it. It's still thin. Notice that you can almost see through it. Okay, now let me do something very wonderful. I'm going to compare these 3 presentations. Like so. Now, I have shown this via my Twitter page, but you really can't compare Twitter to YouTube. YouTube is the best. Okay, now this is quite a beautiful site. Okay, notice those leaders. They all have different colors to them. So this is the Polish 1992 release. This is the European 1980s. I still think it's Polish, I'm not sure. And this is the American release. Baby blue, hot pink towards a red, frosted white. Now this is the ribbon itself. The American release, the ribbon used is a very dark color to it. Very high quality. This other European one is a slight step backwards, less quality. And this one as well. It's more like a... Okay, now let me talk about sound performance compared to these 3. Now I have listened to these 3 with headphones, which really helps. When you really want to listen to those little changes, differences between different cassettes, it really helps when you use headphones. Now, based on all these 3 different presentations, this one still sounds the best compared to these others. I mean, I do own all 3. I use all 3 once in a while, but this one still sounds the best. It has the highest volume of all these 3. These kind of suffer on the volume to them. They have about 10% less volume, which I suspect is because of the actual ribbon that was used. I believe that the ribbon used on this guy was a higher quality ribbon. but that's just my opinion. All right, so I think that's pretty much for this video. And I do own other collections like these, but I really want to start with this one. I consider this album to be very special. And I think that's it for this video. See you next time.